Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McLemore, President and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have special guest, Fred Joyal. He co-founded the most successful dentist referral service in the country, 1-800-DENTIST, which in his 30 years as CEO generated over $1 billion in revenue. Along with this achievement, he has also been awarded the Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award by Loyola Marymount University. He has written 2 best-selling books for his industry and also written and appeared in over 200 television and radio commercials. Fred started as an extremely shy person, too timid even to make a phone call, and transformed himself into someone who has done stand-up and improv comedy, spoken to audiences of 5,000 or more, met dozens of celebrities, and just by being bold, found love, joy, passion, and success. So, without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Mr. Fred Joyal. Hello, Fred. How are you?
I am just doing awesome. I'm really excited to be on your show.
Well, I'm excited to have you. You, sir, have got a heck of a story to tell. So, I can't wait.
If you live long enough and survive, you get a lot of things happen.
You are absolutely right, but you are absolutely still here to tell us all about it. But before we dive into that portion of the conversation, why don't you tell my listeners just a little bit more about who Mr. Fred Joyal really is?
Yeah, I started as an advertising copywriter. That was the first real career I had. And then I decided I really didn't want to be an employee and wanted to run my own business. And as it happened, a friend of mine had the 1-800-DENTIST phone number. And he said, I think you could turn this into a business. And another friend of mine said, hey, let's do it. And we were young and dumb enough to think we could pull it off. You know, it requires a certain amount of naivete and an ability to live on very little. And so we raised $30,000 from our families, and away we went. And we had no idea for about 2.5 years if it was going to work or not. But it eventually got traction, and we had to basically invent every aspect of the business, which meant we stacked up the mistakes. We just made a series of survivable mistakes, is what we like to say. But over those years, I realized I had to transform my shyness and lack of confidence into boldness if I was going to succeed in business and to succeed in emotional, romantic life and relationships and networking and have a fulfilling life in general. And so that was a lot of what I did, and eventually wrote a book on that once I sold the business about 5 years ago. And it has become my MTP right now, is to help people to achieve the boldness and confidence that can bring them to a fulfilling life. And so that's what my latest book is about. Wow. So that's where I am now. But, you know, I love coaching. I coach 4 different entrepreneurs right now, and 2 of them are women with startups. And I really enjoy doing it just because my philosophy is to help them hit different potholes, or not hit them at the same speed I hit them. And, you know, make your own mistakes. You don't have to make mine, because I can guide you around them. But it's really, I admire the chutzpah it takes to start a business, especially as a woman. There's all these unique challenges.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. But what we're going to do is I want to backtrack because, you told the story about the 1-800-DENTIST. And, for some of us who are a little older, we remember that tune or that commercial. And I was like, wow, to think that here you were one of the originated people who founded this business. And even though you said you guys were kind of young and dumb, I mean, isn't that how a lot of us get our start, is that we really have to believe in who we are and what we're doing, no matter what it is, right? And when we're younger, we don't think about it as being something as stupid, or I guess the word is, we don't really we don't care because we know we can at least bounce back up and start all over again. So, before you said you were working in another business that you hated as an employee, but, when you decided to hang with your friends and you guys decided to start this business, and you said somebody actually had the 1-800 number before you jumped into it. Talk a little bit about that journey prior, about the fact that you were an employee. What was it that stunk about being an employee, and how did you feel that you could actually do something that was going to be more beneficial just for yourself, and then help and encourage other people down the road to do the same thing?
So I actually loved the advertising agency business, because I was a copywriter and briefly a creative director. But the career arc wasn't good at all. You made more and more money every year, and you'd change agencies, and then you'd hit somewhere around 50 years old, you'd get laid off, and you'd never be able to get another job. And you'd be making $300,000-400,000 grand, and then you couldn't get a job for 80 grand anymore, and you'd have to go work for some client somewhere for 75,000.
Wow.
And I saw it happening around me, and I said, okay, I can't let this happen to me. And I also I said, I'm writing very effective advertising, and there's no upside for me if it really works. And I said, so the only way that's going to change is if I'm writing the advertising for my own business. And that became the germination of 1-800-DENTIST, because I created all of the advertising, and it was eventually in the commercials for about 15 years. I was the spokesperson. And also I understood how ad agencies wasted money. And I thought, if we just buy our own advertising, place it with the stations ourselves, we can make deals, and that is really where the profit came from in the business. If we didn't buy media efficiently, we would have been a break-even proposition. Right. So that it was loving advertising and loving writing and creating, but I didn't want to be broke at 50.
Right.
So I thought I would, So I fixed that. Now I'm broke at 65, so it's easier,
Right, but the difference too, 30 years ago, when we think back, we didn't have, the technology we have today. So things were done a lot different, and we all understand that being in business, or for those who don't understand, realize that you can open your doors, but that marketing piece is like crucial to any business, and that seems to be the hardest. No matter what it is you're doing, is understanding how to advertise and market yourself. So you had definitely a leg up, but you enjoyed it, and I think that's the key. Where a lot of times that being in business, we don't always enjoy that part so much.
Yeah, and I think the businesses that I coach and have coached, and actually on marketing in particular, the worst thing they do is poor messaging. They are not clear about why they're different, why what they have is unique, and even the verbiage that they use, they're not taking any risk to make themselves sound unique and promote themselves in ways that people dial into their brand as something interesting. I mean, you have to create persuasive marketing, and it's the fastest changing form of communication there is advertising. So you have to be riding that wave. You can sit here, I sat here 3 years ago and said Instagram's a total waste of time to my clients. I don't say that anymore. Right. Now I say TikTok is a waste of time, and next year I won't say that. Right. So and I've seen great business ideas fail from poor marketing, and I've seen average business ideas succeed marvelously with great marketing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they take a product that exists. You know, I have friends that created an electric toothbrush. Now, that marketplace was crowded.
Right.
And they jumped into it, but they marketed themselves so uniquely that they just took off, and they continue to and broaden their product line and everything just because they made their brand interesting. And their competition hasn't figured it out yet. They're just watching these guys zoom up behind them, and
right.
And they're not changing their messaging to catch up to them. So that it is critical. And, you know, there's a lot of people that come up with a business idea and say, oh, it'll sell itself. Hey, heroin doesn't sell itself, okay? They have to, they give it away, right, to people to get them hooked. So if, you know, get real, you know, you have to, you're going to have to market effectively what you do.
Mm-hmm. Right. And you're right. And it's no different because, you know, a lot of times when I'm consulting people who are starting a small business, you know, you get a lot of people who think they can cook, and because like, okay, well, tell me how you stand out. What makes you so different than the next person who says that they can cook, or they have the best chicken, or they have the best this or sandwich or whatever. And you're right. A lot of times people have the hardest time trying to understand how they can convey that message, because the marketing piece is the hardest, because it's one thing to just be able to go in and just start doing the work. You know your products, you know what you're trying to do, but like you said, trying to sell that product, what makes you really stand out is something that people clearly have to think about and really truly struggle with. And so having someone like you, who obviously, you know, like I said, has that background, but now that you're coaching people to understand their business in a whole different format, in a different way. So why don't you give our listeners just a little bit of an example of, you know, how you would do a certain message for somebody who basically, let's say it's a business who truly isn't your typical type business, you know, like, okay, like for instance, I do project management. How does the person who does project management stand out? How do you advertise yourself? Because it's not something tangible per se. It's not a product, like you said, with a toothbrush or something in that perspective. So how do you have that individual think about what it is that they would say or do to make them stand out a little bit differently?
You would just start to redefine it with interesting language. You know, like what I would, as an impulse, I would just start to say, what's the craziest way to describe our business? Because this is what we learned in advertising is, if you write the crazy idea, you can dial it back. If you write the tame idea, you got to dial it up till it's interesting. So we would always say, nothing's too crazy. Nothing's, you know, we're not editing or censoring anything right now. Let's hear everything crazy. I would take that project management idea and I would change the name of the business to Greasy Rails, because what you're doing is greasing the rails so that the project moves smoothly.
I love that.
And now, and this is how used to this I'm doing, that you can fire something at me, and on my first shot, I can come up with something like fairly useful. And now you've got a theme to work with. Okay. Now you can design a logo around that. Now you can create verbiage around it. You know, here's how we lube this project. Here's how we, for the serious uphill tracks, we do this. All of a sudden, you've got a tone that you can playfully inject into all of your messaging.
Absolutely.
And once you do that, it flows from that, and everybody and the team gets excited. They go, wait a minute, I get this thing. We're gonna, we get the special locomotive product, right? Or the high-speed rail product, just you can see what I'm doing. It instantly sparks creativity.
Right.
And now all of a sudden you've got a brand.
Right.
And because it doesn't matter how good you are at project managing, because it's not sexy.
Exactly.
and there's tons of it out there.
Yes.
And so how does somebody decide to use you? And we all decide emotionally and then give ourselves a rational reason for why we're doing it. Mm-hmm. You have to understand that when you're messaging people. Mm-hmm. People are looking for an emotional connection to a brand in some way. If it's funny, if it's pleasant, if it's playful, if it's cheerful, if it's positive, that draws people in. People, they love to throw out, our product worked 38% better. So what?
What, right?
Yeah, you got any more numbers to excite me with? This is what you do and this is part of how I developed my own boldness was in the ad agency. Is I just started coming up with the boldest possible idea, and then I pitched them boldly. I would get in the client's face and I would just pitch the hell out of my idea. And my enthusiasm for the campaign and the concept is what would say, yeah, we'll do that. Because I could have a great concept, and I go, so anyway, so what we're going to do is we'll have a guy in a chef's hat, and he'll be very enthusiastic, and he'll talk about how he's obsessed with baking bread, and they're like, you can see their eyelids fluttering, right? Because they're dozing off, right? And instead I just jump up and I say, this is a chef, and he's obsessed with baking the best bread, and that's he's a raving lunatic, and that's why your bread is so unique. And they say, really? Can we get a chef like that? I went, hey, we'll cast until we find him.
Right.
So so that's I've actually given you literally a campaign that I sold to Or Wheat Bread.
Okay. Wow.
But that's you need to be bold in business. It's kind of why I teach it, because I know it takes boldness to lead. It takes boldness to fail and learn from it, and not retreat and give up. People. The number. There's an amazing statistic about restaurants. 80-something% of first-time restaurant owners fail. 75% of them succeed with the second restaurant, but only 60% of them try after the first one fails.
Right.
So they flip the odds completely by just taking another swing at it. And so, it takes boldness to take a beating in the marketplace and go, all right, where's the information?
Exactly.
I'm wrong, but somewhere in this I'm right. Or something's right. The marketplace told me I was wrong, but what did they mean by that? And that's the other thing about business is, like, you got to listen to the marketplace. Don't just listen to yourself and your family.
Right.
You may be in love with something, but the marketplace is going to tell you what it wants. Don't try to solve a problem that 10 people have. You're getting a problem that 10 million people have. And then you're going to talk about how you solve the problem. People who are with project management, they're looking for some greasy rails to get that project going.
Right.
Rather than make it more complicated to manage it.
Right. I love that concept. You and I are going to talk about a little bit more afterwards.
Right. Yeah.
But you're right.
You're going to send me $25 for the idea, because
I love it. But you're right. It's not something sexy. So when you don't have something that stands out to people, it's very hard to get them to gravitate to you. Because like I said, there are a million of us out here, but what do you do differently that will make somebody want to come to you? But, I love that concept. It's smart. And the biggest problem, like I said, I see that a lot of times that, when we're in the business, we're so into it so much that we can't see some of the things that other people can see. So it's very important to have that outside, not in so much influence, but that outside understanding of those who are in this business understand it better than you do, so that's part of the reason why we can reach out to people like you in the marketing business. But then also it does help us later on down the road to truly understand how to see our business in a way that we wouldn't have seen it before. So definitely love this portion of our conversation, but now I really want to dive into a little bit about your books. But before we get into the books, you said, when I read your profile, you used to be very timid. And, of course, obviously now that I'm talking to him, like this man could have not been timid in any way, shape. You did stand up and comedy. I'm like, really? So how did you really, give yourself that, permission, I guess, to feel that freedom to just, to be who you really needed to be?
Well, I saw what bold people were doing, and I thought, why are they like this? I mean, why don't they experience rejection like I do? And I saw how doors would swing open just because they would try the doorknob, it literally and figuratively. And I thought, I'm going to emulate this. As painful as it is for me, I'm going to do it even though it makes me uncomfortable. And what happened is it created this positive feedback loop, because every time I did it, something good happened. Mm-hmm. I learned something new. I got farther than I thought I was going to get, and something undiscoveredly and positive would happen. So I said, I'm going to make this my default mode, and just kept expanding my confidence and boldness, just trying stuff that, like stand-up and improv comedy and acting mm-hmm. classes, all this stuff that, I would be in a flop sweat trying initially, but then I just got good at it. And now I can walk on a stage with 5,000 people mm-hmm. and no material, and the projector cannot work, and the lights could flicker, and my fly could be down, and everything, and I'll roll with all of it.
Right.
Just because I built up my boldness muscle over time. And that's mm-hmm. in the book, that's what I created, is a systematic way where you can do it much faster than I did. Instead of 30 years, you can do it in 90 days mm-hmm. and then have a systematic way to keep growing it and have the tools when a situation comes up and you go, like, I'm hesitating here. I got to stop myself from hesitating. I need to act. You know how to do it, right? Because I've taught you how to do it, and you just power through, and that's where the good stuff happens.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And like I say, you have the two books. So you talked that you have the one that's on the coaching, and what are the titles of both of your books?
So the two books I wrote for dentistry are Everything is Marketing and Becoming Remarkable. So they're for the marketing for the dental industry. Mm-hmm. My latest book is called Super Bold. From underconfident to charismatic in 90 days. Mm-hmm. And it's basically, charismatic is just you act like you belong everywhere you go. And it right. draws people to you, that confidence. Mm-hmm. And you can get there. Anyone can get there. When people started telling me I was charismatic, I would say, are you talking about me? and it was just, I had realized that my boldness had made me so comfortable everywhere mm-hmm. that it radiated out to people. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like I'm a show off or I need attention or anything like that. It's just I move through the world with confidence and boldness, and I'll try anything. Mm-hmm. And nothing gets labeled as going wrong. Like I said, if something goes wrong on stage, and I'll give you my favorite example of a friend of mine, because you're talking to women entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. She's on stage, got 1,000 people in the audience. Now, she's a great speaker. She breaks her high heel on stage. Now, that's horrifying.
Right.
It's like you want to run off stage. You want to just hold everything. I'll be back in 10 minutes or whatever. Mm-hmm. She kicks off her shoes and says, well, I guess I should spend more than $30 on shoes from now on.
Exactly.
And now what happens? The audience falls in love with her at this mm-hmm. point.
Right.
Because they roar with laughter, and she's comfortable. She's not embarrassed. Mm-hmm. She's rolling with it, and she owns them at that point, because mm-hmm. she said, nothing bad happened, just something happened. And I'm going to use it to my advantage to make mm-hmm. you so comfortable with me, because I'm so comfortable up here. Anything can happen.
Right.
And it's going to be all right. And so anybody can get there. It just takes time and practice and technique. And mm-hmm. I'll teach you the technique.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I like the fact that, what you learn and what you're teaching people can also not just be used in the business, but in your everyday life. Because like you said, we all have those moments in our life where we don't always feel so bold, or, I liked how when I was reading your profile, you talked about being just bold and found love and joy and passion. And that's the biggest thing about being in business. Most of us are very passionate about what we do. And so a lot of times if we can use that passion, not just in business, but in our regular lifestyle, it just makes life so much simpler and so much easier where we, when you just stop overthinking everything, stop getting upset about the little things that mean nothing to you, and really truly learning how to carry your boldness in a certain way that where, when it does something happen, it's like, we'll deal with it and we keep moving on without feeling like life is coming to an end. Right. So, I mean,
we're in the game of life, but we're in the game of life, but we don't know how long the coach is going to let us play.
Yes.
So you got to play full out. And you don't want to miss opportunities, and you don't want to stack up regrets. That's what being super bold is about, is you don't miss when it's important, when it's crucial in your life. And it could just be a business opportunity or an adventure, or you need to give a eulogy for your father. And you don't like speaking in front of people. That you don't have that excuse anymore. You get one chance to eulogize a parent. And you'll regret it the rest of your life if you don't do it.
Right.
And so you want to be able to do that. You want to, whatever it is, when it's critical, when it's a turning point in your life, and it will be, you want to be able to step up.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. Wow. You and we could talk about this forever because it just, everything you're talking about makes such, it's common sense, but a lot of the times we don't always use, our common sense because we're so busy trying to check the boxes, because we live in a world that tells you have to check the boxes. This is where you start, you go get your education, then you go work for a job, then you go, everything has a little check mark by it because we're so afraid. Sometimes there are people who are truly afraid of or allowing individuals just to be who they need to be. It's not about making sure that you check the boxes, it's about really truly living the life that you want to live, and bringing that, and that comes with the the joy, the passion, and the success. And it's something that a lot of us still have to be taught, and it's something you still have to constantly remind yourself every day that life is more than just about checking the boxes. So what you are doing, I just love it. And to hear you, like I said, I could listen to you all day because you just make you laugh. But the things you're saying, like I said, it sticks with you. It truly does stick with you.
That's great. That is why I'm passionate about this message, because I think it's so critical to a satisfying life.
Exactly. So before we end the show, though, is there any advice or do you have any last words for somebody who truly is feeling, I'm sure there's somebody listening now saying, you know what, this is me, but I really don't know how to get out of that rut. What would you say to them right now?
I would say two things. I would say you need to start talking to strangers every day. Talk to a stranger until you feel comfortable doing it. And my book will tell you how to do that, but just make that commitment to yourself. I'm going to talk to somebody, even if it's say one thing, say a compliment, introduce myself, say hello, talk about the weather, whatever the heck it is. Every day, talk to a stranger, and you'll start to build that boldness muscle. And the other thing is to start telling yourself, I am worthy and I belong everywhere. Because we're constantly telling ourselves where and when and with whom we're not worthy. And why? Why is that your message? Why? I've been in rooms with billionaires. I've been in rooms with people who make so much more money and are so much more successful, I couldn't catch them in 5 lifetimes. And I chat with them like they're regular people.
Right.
Because that's what they are. They're just people. And I belong there too, because I told myself I did.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Those are 2 great messages. I love that. The boldness, that is key. Knowing who you are and knowing that you're worthy. You hit that perfectly. So, Fred, before we end, though, is there anything that you'd like to share with us about, what you got coming up, and then of course how we can get a hold of you, and then of course how we can find your books.
Yeah, so go to my website, fredjoyal.com. You can see a couple of boldness lectures that I've got posted there. You can also download the first chapter of the book, and the book is available on Amazon in Kindle and Audible, and it's me reading it, and in hardcover. And so, obviously, I recommend reading it. I recommend, if you have a team, getting the team to read it and almost workshop it and say, okay, we're going to get good at meeting people. We're going to get good at closing. We're going to get good at raising money. All of these things that you need to do as an entrepreneur, these are boldness skills. Mm-hmm. And everybody on your team, you want to be boldly performing and working together boldly. And so if you're building a business, this is how you get started. So get the book and do the stuff in the book. The book isn't something just to read. It's an action plan. It's exercises to do to build your boldness muscle. So that's what I recommend. And you can always book a half-hour consultation with me on the website. Not always, not forever, but right now you can. Eventually I won't be able to do that. But, I love to talk to people who are just saying, like, help me break out of this. I know I have to be this way, or I have to do this. Or you want me to come do a keynote to your team. If your team's big enough and you can afford me, obviously I'd love to talk to your team and rev them up and get them started on their bold pathway.
All right. Well, I tell you what, for those who, like I said, you may not be able to afford to, have the opportunity to take your course, or, obviously they should be able to afford the book. But for those who are listening, or they haven't listened and you need to go back and re-listen this, you need to take this opportunity. That's the thing that I love about my show, is that we are dropping, as I always say, pink nuggets. And then, of course, for Fred, we're going to say some golden nuggets tonight. Okay, so, this is an opportunity to learn. So this show, yes, we laugh, we cry, whatever it takes, we tell our stories, but at the end of the day, it's truly about learning something. And, tonight, Fred, you have definitely done that for us. And, for those who are still out here trying to dream and they haven't reached those dreams yet, and they're still trying to figure out what it needs to be bold, if you would like me to get you to Fred, I can do that as well. If you want to talk to me, please reach out to us. We're here for a reason. And Fred, thank you so much for coming on to the show tonight and sharing your story and sharing what it takes to be bold. I mean, it's just been such a pleasure.
Well, thank you for having me on. Hope everyone is a little bit bolder after hearing it.
Well, if they're not, look, we're going to have to just beat them over the head with this over and over again.
Yeah, I know.
Because I don't see how you can't be excited, because you excited me for 30 minutes here. So I'm like, I'm just like, yes, sometimes you say you need to hear these things. And like I said, for those who are truly stuck and they need somebody they want to talk to, please reach out to me anytime at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com. And let's have that chat. Let's talk about the steps that you need to take to turn those dreams into goals. And of course, if you want more of your resource for success, we do accept monetary donations to support the podcast, now accepted on Cash App, PayPal, Good Pods, Tip Jar, or you can go directly to the website at www.wsbilc.com. And again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We will be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcasts. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening, and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.